Not a practice. What the hell I started? I'd like to welcome everyone to the Emmaus Borough Council meeting. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, if anyone has a personal appeal, please approach the podium and sign in. Hearing none, we'll move on to community minute. Does anyone have a community minute? Oh, and for the record, we have Councilman Barrett and Councilman Anders absent for the evening. Anybody have a community minute? Bring forward? No? Hearing none, at this time, I would like to call forward Alex Kuhn from the American Heart Association. And also, I'd like to call Chief Hoffman and Lieutenant Deppie front and center for a presentation.
After that, can we do the first personal appeals? Because we skipped over that.
I just did them.
Oh, you did? Okay, I didn't even hear it. I'm sorry.
It's all right.
Do we need to go
I've
back
been there.
and start over
No,
again here?
no,
Pledge
you're good.
everything? Are we good with it?
You're good.
I'm happy to. No, it's great to be here tonight in Emmaus. To talk a little bit about the care that your EMS providers are providing for the most serious type of heart attack. And it's called a STEMI heart attack. And I thought I was about ready to have one when I was driving here. And I noticed I was getting off at Emmaus Drive. And Emmaus only had one M on that. And you guys had two. And I'm like, I know I have two. And did I misspell it? I'm like, dang it. Fortunately, I got it right. So a little bit about the award. There are a lot of EMS agencies in this country. There are about 15,000. They all provide great service. They're all working on training their providers, making sure they have the right equipment, trying to implement a heart attack system of care with their hospitals, based on the American Heart Association, American College of Cardiology guideline recommendations. And, those are what we call high functioning. And, I would say just about every agency at some level is trying to be a very high functioning agency when it comes around the care they provide to these most severe type of heart attacks. This award that I'm giving tonight to Emmaus Ambulance Corps is really about taking high functioning and also looking at high quality. And when we talk about high quality, we talk about how do we begin to look at the care that we're providing and begin to look at opportunities for improvement. So we're just not like this, but we're always looking at how do we continue to improve our day-to-day business and the care that we provide. And so Emmaus Ambulance Corps joins 75 other agencies in the state of Pennsylvania. And so that seems like a lot, 75 other EMS agencies, but when you think about it, there are about 1,000 licensed EMS providers in the state of Pennsylvania. So it's actually a very small group of agencies that are high functioning and high quality based on these guideline recommendations in this award. Taking that one step further, there are about 670 agencies in the country that are getting this award. And again, when you look at 15,000 agencies and 670 getting the award, it's about 0.5% of all the agencies in the country. So Emmaus really distinguished itself as a very elite group of, or elite agency amongst the best out there. We're looking at a few things as it relates to this. So we ask Emmaus Ambulance Service to report on a bunch of different measures on cardiac arrest and stroke and heart attacks. But when we begin to look at the measures that qualified them for this award, they had to achieve a 75% or higher for the measures that were out there over the course of last year. And there were three measures that Emmaus is getting recognized for. One is, did anybody in your community have chest pain? They got an ECG. Again, so your providers had to be trained, they had to have the equipment, and they had to recognize that that patient was having a heart attack. Two, anywhere in your community, if somebody had a heart attack, when Emmaus or paramedic or a first responder arrived at the side of that patient, the clock started ticking. And the guidelines from the American Heart Association, American College of Cardiology say when the EMS provider makes that first medical contact to the time that patient gets to the hospital, through the emergency department, and up to the cardiac cath lab, and their artery is open, has to be 90 minutes. 90 minutes. Anywhere in your community, your citizens are getting the best care possible. And the third measure is really a time measure, and really, again, keeps EMS moving forward, is arrival to first ECG. We're beginning to look at asking EMS agencies to look at that information. And I work for the American Heart Association, and our mission is about lives saved. And when we begin to look at the number of lives saved as it relates to this initiative that we've put into the community, we've actually seen about a 20% reduction in the number of age-adjusted deaths in Lehigh Valley. And so I know there are a lot of other EMS agencies that are contributing to this, but Emmaus is part of that overall work and the reducing the number of deaths in your community. We should be very proud of the work that they do. It's a lot of hard work that they do on a day-to-day basis, working with our hospitals and their providers to make sure that you have a heart attack system of care that provides the highest quality care possible. The American Heart Association will recognize Emmaus all throughout the year in our professional journals, EMS professional journals, at conferences, and on our websites. But from our staff and volunteers, I'd like to present Emmaus Ambulance Corps with the 2017 Bronze Performance Achievement Award.
Chief, Lieutenant, would you like to say anything?
I'd just like to say, I'd like to thank the American Heart Association for having this program and for helping to teach these guidelines, and also put out there about 2 weeks ago we had a heart attack call where our crew, from the time they arrived on scene until they did the ECG and recognized a heart attack, was 3 minutes, and they mobilized the cath lab before they even arrived at the hospital. So the system does work, and it's working well in this region. And I just want to thank all of our EMTs and medics for being on board with it.
And I'll just finish with one last thing is that, again, you have a phenomenal heart attack system of care in your community. Unfortunately, only about 50 to 60% of folks actually call 911 when they're having symptoms of a heart attack. So I think it's important as you continue to work with your community to encourage them to call 911 when they have symptoms. These guys are going to show up, look at the patient, and determine the best care possible for them.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the Mr. Kuhn from the American Heart Association for the recognition, and the Ambulance Corps, something very much to be proud of. So thank you for all that. Thank you. Moving on to the minutes, would somebody like to recommend approving the council meeting minutes of July 17th? Councilman Dufresne, seconded by Councilman Brown. Any questions or corrections? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. There are 5 ayes. There are no decisions on bids. We have one communication from Megan Reed, our Emmaus Main Street leader, and it's a request for the Farewell to Summer Festival on September 10th. Is that something that needs to go to committee or staff?
I think you guys need to vote on the alcohol aspect of it.
All right, so we will refer this to the Parks and Recreation Committee?
You don't have enough time.
So it's short notice.
September 10th.
Well, we have a meeting on what, September?
You're gonna have a council meeting on the
Fifth.
5th.
It's the 3rd. No, it's the 10th,
Yeah,
never mind. The meeting's actually, wait.
You have a council meeting on the 5th.
Council meeting's the 5th
So-
because of the holiday.
Oh, because it's a holiday.
Oh, 2 of my pages stuck together, sorry. All right.
I mean, it's
So
the
you wanna
same,
do it
it's the
tonight?
same old event.
So
There's nothing different other than anything
this
else.
is several years we had this, and it's growing every year. So does somebody like to make a motion to allow? Now, is it actually on a triangle, or are we doing it on, is it on a side property?
Well, there's one other thing I'd like you to vote on too, besides the alcohol. They would like to put yard signs with stakes in and around Triangle Park, and that's not something that
Okay.
I would approve.
We'll do them
myself.
separately. Is somebody like to make a motion with allowing the yard signs? I think it's 3 yard signs around the triangle and 1 actually in the triangle. It's something that recently we only allow borough organizations to do, so.
Oh, that's right, we hung stuff on the
uh,
triangle.
So is there a motion to approve that? Councilman Brown, second by Councilman Schipsta. Questions or discussion? Councilman Brown.
What does the signs say?
It's just gonna be your regular yard sign advertising the event. And it can't be that long because it's September 10th. So it's gonna be up there a week, 10 days, maybe 2 weeks, unless they haven't printed already. Any other questions? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no and raise your hand.
No?
No.
It's 3-2.
There's 3 ayes and 2 noes, Councilman Schipsta and Councilwoman Gilbert. Then we have our second item, which is to allow the sale of alcohol in a triangle for the event. Is there a motion to approve that? With the proper insurance, correct?
Yeah.
With the proper insurance. Councilwoman Gilbert, is there a second? Councilman Brown, questions or discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. There are 5 ayes. Anything else with that, or does that cover it?
That covers it.
All right, thank you. There's no Borough Engineers report, Solicitors report. Well, Mr. Dinkellocker, I haven't seen you in a while.
It's been a while, yeah.
Good.
Be here. But I have nothing to add. I think.
Progress. All right. Unfinished business, part 1. We have 2 ordinances. We have ordinance 1156, an ordinance amending the provision of chapter 1, part 1, subsection 1 through 103, Borough Manager of the Borough of Emmaus Consolidated Code of Ordinances. This is the first reading. Second reading will be, I'm sorry, this is the second reading. We had our first reading July 17th. Would somebody like to place that in the form of a motion? Councilman Brown, second. Councilwoman Gilbert. This is under whose committee? Is any-
Jan.
Okay. Well, basically, it's an update on, it's basically right from the Borough Code, stating what we just basically put it into an ordinance stating what the borough manager's responsibilities are.
It's
more involved.
updating a 30-year-old job description is all it's doing.
Yeah, it's,
So, this is a roll call vote. Councilman Brown?
Aye.
Councilman Schubsta?
Aye.
Councilwoman Gilbert?
Aye.
Councilman Dufresne?
Aye.
Councilman Ladenburg? Aye. There are 5 ayes. That is the second reading, so that passes. We have another ordinance for second reading, and that is ordinance 1157, an ordinance amending chapter 15 subsection 403 and chapter 15 subsection 404.1 of the codified ordinances addressing vehicle, bus and drop-off, and pickup parking issues on East Minor Street. So the first reading of that was on July 17th. Is there a motion to approve 1157, ordinance 1157? Councilman Brown, second by Councilwoman Gilbert. Questions or discussions on this? This is just, I think, the third time we're amending it. It's just basically to help with the safety and the flow of traffic. Pretty much that covers it, right?
Absolutely.
Anybody else want to add anything? All right, roll call vote. Councilman Brown?
Aye.
Councilman Schubsta?
Aye.
Councilwoman Gilbert?
Aye.
Councilman Dufresne?
Aye.
Councilman Ladenburg? Aye. There are 5 ayes. We have 4 ordinances under new business. We have ordinance 1158, and this is our first reading. An ordinance amending the Borough of Emmaus zoning ordinance by amending the official zoning map to change the zoning classification of a 1.6 acre, more or less, tract of land forming a part of the property known as Pennsylvania Avenue Rear and identified by the Lehigh County tax pin number, oh boy, 54942094699251 from the Conservation Residential Zoning District to the Medium Density Residential Zoning District. Whose committee was this on?
So this was the presentation you saw a couple maybe the last meeting of Bill Wall and Joe Buba regarding a development behind Pennsylvania Avenue, and I believe that we spoke about that at Gen Ed as
Yes.
well.
Okay.
But it came from the last council meeting. This is the ordinance that you guys voted to start the process.
Yep.
Correct. Is there a motion to approve 1158? Oh, we did that or not? Did we do that?
No.
Is there a motion to approve 1158? Councilwoman Gilbert, seconded by Councilman Schubsta. Questions or discussion? So roll call vote. Councilman Brown?
Aye.
Councilman Schubsta?
Aye.
Councilwoman Gilbert?
Aye.
Councilman Dufresne?
Aye.
Councilman Ladenburg? There are 5 ayes, and second reading will be second meeting in September?
No. So this is, because it's a zoning amendment, there's a whole
September.
process that goes with it. We have to post the property, we have to send it out to a bunch of planning commissions. The county's planning commission, our planning commission, they have 45 days to review. I think we were looking at middle of October.
I think October 12 or 16,
Yeah,
somewhere in that.
there will
Okay.
be a public hearing, which I know that there will be some neighbors that are interested in what's going on out there. So
Okay.
that public hearing will probably have some public input in it. but we're looking at middle of October, I think, for that process.
Thank you.
Letters have all been delivered to the planning commission, so the clock with the planning commission is ticking.
Okay. We have ordinance 1159, an ordinance creating a quality of life ticketing program to resolve property blight and maintenance violation issues in a more expeditious manner. This is first reading. This was under codes.
Mr. Shubster?
Yep.
Yeah, Chairman Shipster, do you want to add any information to this?
No, I mean, I think what we did was we looked at several other municipalities that had written these types of ordinances. Some were very lengthy in description. We decided to come back and basically we shortened ours up and just referenced a lot of the ordinances that are out there and and some of the changing within the chapters as far as like some of the regulations and the codes. You could see that the issue was, and we had this in the past, is that when we have a property that is neglected or it's not being taken care of, we have to send out certified letters. It costs us, what is it, Shane, now?
Like $7.68
$7 to
or
$9, something like that a piece. So with this system, it relieves that, and it just basically puts it on the homeowner to, they've been notified that they have to take care of their property within a certain amount of time.
It also shortens the legal process, hopefully, to remedy the property faster.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the whole goal behind it, is rather than going through the non-traffic citation process with the court, you can issue, after you give them their warnings, their fair warnings, our next process would normally be issue them a citation, wait 2 months for a court hearing, go through the whole process. What this does is it allows them that if they don't take care of the property, they can issue a ticket instead and try and do expedite the entire process of making sure that a property is taken care of.
Great. All right, somebody like to make the motion? Councilman Brown, second by Councilman Dufresne. Any questions or discussion? All those in favor, or is going to be a roll call vote? Councilman Brown?
Aye.
Councilman Shipsta?
Aye.
Councilwoman Gilbert?
Aye.
Councilman Dufresne?
Aye.
Councilman Ladenburg? Aye. There are 5 ayes. We have ordinance 1160, an ordinance amending the provisions of Chapter 5, Code Enforcement, Part 6, International Property Maintenance Code, subsection 5-602, amendments of the Borough of Emmaus Consolidated Code of Ordinances to establish regulations for prohibited furniture and appliances on the exterior of a property. This is the first reading. Whose committee was this? Codes also?
He's a star tonight.
Would you like?
Yeah.
I mean, it's
yeah,
pretty
like
self-explanatory, but you
Yeah,
want
it
to.
is, and what happened was, we, on our last council meeting, the young lady had brought to our attention about her area, so we talked to Jim, and he was gonna go out and take a look at it, and it turns out that we don't have anything about
Enforcement.
furniture or any kind of enforcement. Yep, anything on a front porch, or even in the front yard.
And you can have an outdoor, made for outdoor sofa on your
Correct.
porch, but you can't put your living
Can't you
room
put your
sofa out there
lazy
made with.
boy out there. Yep.
Correct. All right, so you like to place that in form of motion?
Yep, I will place
Councilman
that forward.
Shipsta, second. Councilman Dufresne. Questions or discussion? This is a roll call vote. Councilman Brown?
Aye.
Councilman Shipsta?
Aye.
Councilwoman Gilbert?
Aye.
Councilman Dufresne?
Aye.
Councilman Ladenburg? 5 ayes. I did actually have a question. I didn't see any penalties listed.
It refers to the penalty
Goes
section
back
of
to
the
it.
codes enforcement section of the ordinance. So it refers to the penalty section that's already codified.
It doesn't have any jail time, because I wouldn't have voted.
No, it's a
for-
maximum $1,000 fine. Usually
fines.
it's a $25 fine.
No, I want to make sure, because there was jail time for something with the fire pits or something, I remember, so I'm not in favor of something like that, so. All right, ordinance 1161, an ordinance amending the provisions of Chapter 10, Health and Safety, Part 2, Vermin Control of the Borough of Emmaus Consolidated Code of Ordinances to authorize the animal control officer to enforce vermin control ordinances. This is the first reading, and I'm sure this is under the Code Enforcement
Yes,
Committee.
and same
moving
story, same concept?
Well, yeah, so, yeah, kind of the same concept. Our animal control officer was called to a property, which it's almost like a comedy of errors between these two neighbors fighting with each other, which we won't get into the details. But he comes back to me and says, hey, our ordinance doesn't say I'm allowed to enforce it, but it doesn't say that you, Shane, can enforce it. And I said, I'll take care of that. Don't you worry.
Which he did.
So that's why this is here.
Now, I have a question. I did read this part. I didn't see anything with penalties in this. Is that correct?
Again, yeah, so all we're doing is we're saying that everything that I have the authority under this part of the code to
Cite 'em.
To cite them.
Yeah.
We're now giving that to the animal control officer who really should have that authority.
Okay. You'd like to place that in a form of
I'll
motion?
place that in a form of
Councilman
motion.
Shipsta,
Yep.
second by Councilman Brown. Anything else to add to it? Roll call vote, Councilman Brown?
Aye.
Councilman Shipsta?
Aye.
Councilwoman Gilbert?
Aye.
Councilman Dufresne?
Aye.
Councilman Ladenburg, there are 5 ayes, and that is the first reading. So all of them except for the zoning ordinance. The other 3 will have our second meeting in September
Yeah,
for second reading?
September 18th, it looks like.
Okay. Unfinished business part 2, we have nothing. Does anybody have an item to bring that's not on the agenda? Hearing none, mayor's report.
I have nothing, Mr. President.
All right. Committee reports, Public Works, Chairman Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Ladenburg. Nothing for official action, but just if you read your packet, there's multiple list of projects that are ongoing, and in that memo was the status reports on them. But the one thing I just want to make sure, the 10th Street culvert, we're costing us a little bit more, about $50,000 more, and we're still waiting on PennDOT and DEP to review our permits and our plans. So we continue to wait, and hopefully we can start this project this year. Our goal was to get it done before school started, but unfortunately that's being pushed back even further now as we continue to wait. So that's an update on that.
And one of the concerns that we have is because of the length that it's going to take, like the length of time it's going to take to do it,
Yep.
we're almost fearful to even do it this year. Simply because if you don't have the finished if you don't have the pavement, which the plant's usually closed by mid-November, if that pavement's not here and ready, that means that entire road's going to be closed until next March or April. I'm not sure that we want to do that and wait until April to open that road back up. So,
And on the other hand,
but, well, and here's, yeah, and it's a catch-22 because the grant expires next year. So it has to be done by June 30th, no matter what.
Yep.
So we almost have to get this thing moving. So we're in a bad spot in terms of this project's not going to start until at least October. And it certainly doesn't look like it's going to be finished in a timely manner. I mean, making the culvert itself, I mean, it's a specialty built piece of concrete. So just doing that's going to take some time to get finished.
is there any way of petitioning the state, because the state's the person that they're the ones that are holding us up?
It's our fault first.
Okay,
Our engineer, and it doesn't, I mean, it's not a blame thing.
that's what the board.
Our engineer didn't design it to what PennDOT felt that it should have been designed to. So whether it's a PennDOT thing or our engineer thing, I mean, that's for us to discuss later. Bottom line is, we had to re-engineer, we had to do core borings again. It took time, we had to resubmit the permit package, and they have so many days to review it. So, that's where we are with it. Okay, accurate?
Yeah, that's
Good.
Okay, nothing else for official action. Our next meeting is September 11th here in council chambers at 3 p.m., and I'll report progress.
Thank you, Chairman Brown. Chairman Shipsta, for the health sanitation codes, we took care of the 3 ordinances. Do you have anything else?
No, we got the ticketing system, the animal officer, and the indoor furniture on the front porch. And the only question I have for Shane is, did they respond back to schedule a meeting with us, Mascaro?
Not today.
Okay.
Councilman Shipsta,
So.
it was in your minutes for your last meeting about finding out if recycling expanded at all, and you were going to try to get a list.
Yeah, we got a list, actually I have it outside.
Anything different?
Nothing was different, nothing
Okay.
changed, no updates on any new items that they're taking in their new facility or anything like that.
Okay.
Yep. And we have a meeting scheduled, hopefully with them, to discuss some issues that we're having. Our next meeting is scheduled for September 21st at 4:15. I'll report progress.
Thank you. Parks and Recreation Committee, Chairman Anders is not here. Councilman Barrett is not here, and I'm on that committee, and I was not at the meeting, so I'll turn that over to you, Shane, since you were the only one there.
All right,
That's
great.
present.
So, in your packet, you have a proposal from Reverend Don Kearns. I'm not sure if he's in attendance or not. I don't see him.
This is in reference to the Gaga Pit.
Yeah, St. Matthew's Church wants to build a Gaga pit at Lions Field. The committee is in favor of that. They want to build it up towards where the playground is. I guess if you're looking from home plate, it would be the right field side. So we would be looking for a motion for council to approve building a Gaga pit that would be similar to the one that was built at Community Park, which, by the way, is used very heavily, to my surprise. Like, I just thought this was some
Yeah.
crazy idea, and kids love that game. And apparently in that neighborhood, they have their own little version going, and they'd like to build a pit that would be conducive to that game.
They built that before Community Day last year, and they were doing demonstrations, and people were playing it all day long. Adults, little kids, all ages. All right, so somebody like to make a motion to allow them to build a Gaga pit at Lions Playground?
So moved.
Councilwoman Gilbert, second. Councilman Schubsta, questions or discussion? This was prearranged with John Deshala?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I would say make it contingent upon John Dyshala's final
Okay,
approval. if you could.
would you like to amend the
I'll
motion in
amend
a
my
second?
motion.
Who is the second?
Oh, I was second, I'll amend.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, those opposed say no. There are 5 ayes. The
right,
Borough
this-
Line field rules was because of the tournaments.
Yeah,
Yeah, I see that.
so, yeah, there's some issues with Burline Park in terms of weekend tournaments. I've been here 5.5 years. For 5 of those years, the same neighbor has paid me a visit at least once a summer. The concerns are, and they're legitimate concerns, these weekend tournaments are showing up at 7 o'clock in the morning, making all sorts of noise. We want to put a time limit in terms of what time teams can start showing up to the field. So basically, we need to push the use of that field back. They can't get there before 8 o'clock. And the other thing is that we would like to put a policy in place that they have to spread their games out, because one of the other problems is while 2 teams are playing, 2 more teams are showing up, and parking is a nightmare, including in front of these people's houses. I'll tell you that on the weekends, it will definitely reduce police calls if we can address that situation, because our police are down there at least once a weekend during tournaments dealing with the parking.
Are we specifying the time frame in between games, like a half hour? Are we specifying that?
Yeah, I think in your committee minutes, in your committee notes, I think we laid that out. Yeah, so there was a motion by the committee that no tournament games would begin prior to 9 a.m. with teams arriving no earlier than 8 o'clock. In addition, games shall be spread out so that the arrival of teams do not overlap with ongoing games at the park. So that's what we would be asking for you to approve.
All right, is there a motion to approve those rules for Borough? Is it just specifically Borough Line?
Borough Line's the only.
All right, would somebody like to make a
problem.
motion to approve those rules for Borough Line? Councilwoman Gilbert, second. Councilman Brown, any questions or discussion? Councilman Brown?
You know what, you brought up a good point. Maybe William Street, because William Street has the same.
We
same-
haven't had complaints, though.
Oh, okay.
I think there's a little more distance there. This is kind of right on that guy's house.
There's also more, yeah.
Yeah, that's true. There's a little higher density.
Yeah, Borough Line is right smack in the middle of the residential neighborhood. William Street, there's at least more places that they can park.
You know, they could have a game at 9 o'clock and they're showing up at 7 doing batting practice, and you wouldn't want to hear that at 7 in the morning, so.
I want to vote for this, but that's, the people that run the tournaments don't control when the coaches have their teams come to coach.
We understand that, but they can put that in their tournament
They have to
rules.
notify you, though.
It's gonna be hard to enforce, it's just,
We can put a fine in place.
Or you say if you don't follow the rules, you're not coming back next year.
I'm good with it, it's just gonna be hard to enforce,
Yeah,
because
we put a fine in place to deal with that, because that's one of the things in your fee schedule for next year, we're going to be dealing with at Community Park.
For
Because
damages.
It's the second
that's
weekend in
damages.
the last 6 where we've had damages on a weekend.
Any other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. There are 5 ayes. I believe that's all that was on the agenda, if I read it correctly. All right. Public Safety Committee Chairwoman Gilbert.
Thank you. We have one item this evening for official action. Chief Palmer is asking that we promote 2 individuals to the rank of sergeant. However, at this point, the committee is only recommending 1, and we will have that discussion with him in our next meeting as to why he's looking for 2.
There's a motion to start the process for 1 sergeant. Is there a second? Councilman Schubsta, questions or discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. There are 5 ayes.
That was all for official action. We had Chief Hoffman and Chief Price discuss the call volume for the first half of the quarter. Mr. Kripp, the EMA director, is finishing up on his assignment that he's been working on for the last year. Chief Price had submitted a report. The ISO score remained at 3 this time around. What's the easiest way to explain that, Shane?
It affects your homeowners.
Yeah,
Actually,
but what it
doesn't
means
really.
though, like what, it kind of, it affects businesses more than homeowners as far as insurance. But really, it's basically a report card on your fire department.
Right,
I think it's probably the easiest
the
way
easiest
to.
way, right.
1 being the best, 5 being,
Yeah, it's on a scale of 1 to 10.
it goes up to 10, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
the
10
lower the
being
number,
worse.
the better your response is, the better your department is. Right now, we're at a 3. So that's good. They still have some things that they need to work on, training and staffing, which we all know that that's been an issue. But the report did come back at the number 3, and that's good. Other than that, the animal control officer received his Act 245 training, which allows him to carry a firearm if needed. Other than that, our next meeting is scheduled for September 6th, and I'll report progress.
Thank you. General Administration Committee Chairman Barrett is not here. He left me with the 12 items that we have to vote on.
See that?
So let's get started.
Smart guy.
We have Colonial Crest zoning change.
They're here.
Colonial Crest, they're proposing to put a Wawa in, so I'd like to bring them forward.
Good evening. Eric Schock from Fitzpatrick, Lenz & Buba, and I represent Summit Realty Advisors, which actually is the proposed developer of a portion of the Colonial Crest land. And with me is John Cogan from Summit, who can answer the harder questions. I can do the simple background. I'm sure you're probably familiar with the apartment complex on just on the east side of Cedar Crest. And there is a portion of the complex that is not developed right now, and probably with good reason, because it's physically separated from the balance of the apartment complex. And it's to the rear of the McDonald's. And that land, though, still retains the zoning of the apartment complex. All of the land along the business district in front is zoned BL. And Summit is requesting that that portion of the property be rezoned to BL. Its intent would be ultimately to subdivide that and, as you mentioned, create a single pad for a Wawa in that location.
And if I might add, the borough, or our committee, I should say, requested that they put a trail along where the creek that's currently there, hopefully connecting 10th Street over to Cedar Crest, and then you could proceed down the sidewalk to the traffic light at the high school stadium, cross there, connect to the walking trail at the Indian Creeks development that's going to go in there, and also connect to Camp Olympic, which is a trail there. So hopefully the goal is to connect that, and then also with the possibility of opening up Green Street to help with traffic flow.
Yeah, if you want, we brought a plan, and we actually have, in the meantime, made those changes, if you would like to look at it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Do you have more than one or just one?
Two.
Can,
You want me to hold it up for you?
Yeah,
Let me take a
that's
quick
fine.
look at it.
You know what, we saw, I mean, other than the updates.
See a change.
just when you guys are finished with it, if I can have it, we appreciate it. When you guys are done looking at it, go ahead and give it to me. Yeah, please. So just a reminder to council, so tonight you're not discussing necessarily what they're putting in there, all right, in terms of like the full body of the plan. What you're doing tonight is considering whether you want to start the process of rezoning that district. And that's, you know, all the street stuff and the trail stuff,
Okay,
that's all concentrated in later
Yes.
discussions.
That's just
That'll go
gonna be
through
two-way or
planning
one-way?
and through you and all that stuff, if,
Okay.
in fact, it gets
Awesome.
that far. But right now, what you're looking at is the zoning district in itself.
great.
Can we have a copy of that? Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, so there obviously would be a lot of work subsequent to this, but the first step would necessarily need to be this, because the use wouldn't be permitted there without the zoning change.
Correct. So what we're looking for tonight is just a motion to start the Colonial Crest zoning change process. So the vote is just to start the process. So is there a motion to approve that?
So moved.
Councilwoman Gilbert, seconded by Councilman Schubsta. Any questions or discussion? Councilman Brown?
So, again,
Nothing here is final,
I
just so you know.
understand.
Okay.
but, so we're talking about Wawa. Is that fair to say, that a Wawa would go there,
Well, that's what it says on the map.
right? Just making sure, because you said, you know, don't focus on the one thing there, so. I'm concerned about the traffic, and I know that there was another company that approached the same location as well, and again, the same. We have 18,000 cars that go through that intersection. We have multiple traffic studies on that. I like your idea, though, of Green Street, that's nice.
That was
and
my
walking.
idea.
Yeah, we
And,
can't take credit
My
for it.
idea.
Thank you, Mr. Labenberg, for that idea, I appreciate that.
So that would bring the traffic to 10th Street where there's a light.
Yes, understand.
And coming out on 11th Street, as you know where the
Yep.
I place is there, that left curb comes out further than the right. It's so hard to pull out there because it's hard to see. And also, if you turn right, it goes right into a turning, that right lane goes down to the turning lane for Cedar Crest. So that was the idea behind it.
So, and again, so that will all go through the PennDOT process, the planning commission process, like that's the type of stuff that you guys will have final say on later on. So while traffic definitely is a concern, no matter if any kind of business would go there, so I think that's a legitimate question.
Yep.
It doesn't matter if it says Wawa, if it says Rite Aid, if it said, it doesn't matter what it would say, there would be a traffic concern. PennDOT's gonna have the final say on that Cedar Crest Boulevard issue. They'll have a major say on 11th Street.
I was gonna say, what about Chestnut as well, right?
Yeah, they'll have a major say on the exit in 11th on the Chestnut. And I'm sure they'd have a major say as to extending Green Street out to North 10th. But those are all things that these guys, outside of them putting a drawing on a map, they haven't gone further than that. So those conversations haven't even really begun. And again, without a zoning change, they can't even have those discussions. I mean, they can go to the zoning hearing board and try to get a variance that way if council doesn't approve a zoning change. But, you know, they felt that, coming to the Gen Ad meeting, that they felt that a zoning change would be more appropriate because the rest of the area right there is that district. And really, that's what I meant when I said concentrate on the idea of a business going in there, not necessarily that it's Wawa. All right.
Oh, I love Wawa.
I-
That's what I'm saying, we're talking Wawa here. So, the floodplain though, is this, does the floodplain come into the mix here as well?
The survey that we're basing from the previous application, and we're gonna go and obviously get our whole own new survey done. But everything we've laid out so far won't violate any development in the floodplain or the riparian buffer or anything like that. Obviously, the final layout of the plan, once we have that survey, could be impacted by any of those restrictions.
And just for comparison purposes, this will be smaller than the Wawa that's on Lehigh Street.
And bigger than McCungy?
No, about the same size.
Same? Okay. That's about
Those are all questions we asked.
Actually, I think it will be, we checked, it will be bigger than the Makanji, smaller than Lehigh.
So in between.
Yeah,
Okay.
so it'll be in between those two.
Thank
Roughly
you.
About halfway, I think, right?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, it was different. We weren't positive when we met with you, but we did check.
All right. Any other questions?
Real quick, does PennDOT determine the turning right or left into the,
Yeah, absolutely. So the movements on the driveway on Cedar Crest will be controlled by the ultimate resolution with PennDOT.
yeah, I think on Green Street, maybe about 3 years ago, we said only right-hand turn coming from Green onto south of Cedar Crest.
Yeah.
We did that about 3 years ago.
And this may be different based upon it being further from the intersection, but we won't know that finally until we go to PennDOT, exactly.
Any other questions? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those
Aye.
opposed say no.
No?
Councilman Brown, no. 4-1. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks for your time.
Moving on to South Second Street property. Shane, I'm going to turn that one over to you because there's nothing under the notes, but I did read the
Yeah,
the
so,
memorandum, but
well, we
I-
have an update as of midday today. Apparently, the county has approved the purchase of the property, so we can probably just skip right over this item.
all right, so that's pending, finalizing that. Contract, real estate agent Feinberg Real Estate. Is that for the sale of properties, or are we not doing that because of
No,
South
for
Second
the,
Street?
for the sale of all of our
All
properties.
For sale, okay, so would somebody like to make a motion to contract real estate agent Feinberg Real Estate?
With the provision that it would be for any properties that were not sold through the public bidding process.
With that stipulation.
So moved.
Councilwoman Gilbert, is there a second? Councilman Dufresne, any questions or discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. There are 5 ayes. All right, next is, we're purchasing a bucket truck from Utility Auto Sales for the price of $35, or $35,000. Put 3 zeros behind that, 35,000, and, what was the height of it? 40 feet, right?
Uh,
I think it was 40 feet.
yeah, I think it's a,
It goes higher than the one we currently have. It's certified,
42 foot, yeah.
it's certified, and I don't remember the year either. What is
it's
the
an
year?
06.
It's a 2006.
It's got 49,000 miles.
49,000, we had 2 people go out and check it, and no rust on it, correct?
No, I mean, we've been all over the eastern part of the state looking for trucks, and this is by far the best one we found.
If we maintain it, hopefully we can keep it another 15, 20 years, so.
Well, the last one we kept 50, so I think,
And we'll have a garage now.
yeah.
So would somebody like to make a motion to approve the purchase of a bucket truck from Utility Auto Sales for $35,000? Councilwoman Gilbert, second. Councilman Dufresne, any questions or discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. There are 5 ayes. Next is to contract, is it pronounced INR or just INR?
INR.
INR Investment Company. Currently, our employees have MetLife. This would be a second company that employees can put their investments in. They will not be forced to move. They have a choice. So if they want to move to this new company, they can. If they want to stay in MetLife, they can. There's no cost to the borough. And the thing that's nice about the INR Investment Company is that they have investment advice for our employees. So if there's somebody that doesn't know anything about investing, they can get advice from this company, where currently MetLife does not provide that. So it's a nice benefit for our employees, and it won't cost us anything. So would anyone like to make a motion to contract INR Investment Company? Councilman Schubsta, second. Councilman Dufresne, any questions or discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? There are 5 ayes. Ordinance 1158 we took care of. Ambulance station address. So currently, the ambulance and fire department have one address, and there is a grant that we can apply for the ambulance and the fire department, but because it shows up as one address, it complicates things in the state side. Is it state or federal?
Federal.
The fed's eye. The chief came to us and asked if we would be willing to apply for another address so they're separate. And that will allow us to apply for 2 grants for each organization in 1 year. Now, if we didn't do this, we'd have to pretty much alternate every other year. So would somebody like to make a motion to apply for a new address for the ambulance station? Councilman Brown, second by Councilman Schubster. Questions or discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed say no. There are 5 ayes. Public Works Department building. On your tab, there is information for bidding out the new Public Works building to store our equipment and trucks, and also a bay for working on trucks. So would somebody like to make a motion to approve the bidding out the Public Works building? Councilman Brown, second by Councilman Schubster. Questions or discussion?
Just a question. Shane, do you want 2 separate motions? One to prepare the bid specs for the full
Yeah, let's go
building
ahead and,
proposal, and then the second just for the concrete work?
let's go ahead and do that. I mean, it's pretty close.
All right.
We're gonna look at maybe doing one other thing, and that is buying the concrete ourselves. Because we did get a local contractor to price it out, and when he itemized it, we found that we could probably buy it for quite a bit less ourselves, the concrete
okay.
itself.
Right.
So we may look at doing the concrete work a little differently than just straight out
Okay.
bidding it.
So at
Okay.
this point, the motion will be just to bid out the building specs.
Yes.
You amend your
Yeah.
motion in a second. Okay. Any question or discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed say no. There are 5 ayes. So the second motion would be to bid out the concrete work for the pad of the building. Is there a motion for that? Councilwoman Gilbert, second by Councilman Brown. Questions or discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. There are 5 ayes. All right, next we have a memorandum of understanding for James Farnsworth. He's been an employee of the borough for over 30 years now, and this is to, it's a memorandum of understanding because he plans to retire in the next few years, and this gives him reassurance that after 30 years he'll receive what he's currently provided, so that it cannot be taken away from him in future councils. After serving here over 30 years. Would somebody like to make a motion to approve the memorandum? Councilman Schubster, seconded by Councilwoman Gilbert. Questions on this? Councilman
So
Dufresne?
again, just from reading the notes from the meeting, this is just formalizing what's already there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so.
Correct, but it can't be taken away,
Part of the
is what it's doing.
Yeah, so here's what our plans are. The Gen Ag Committee, over the course of the last year, has been working with me to start changing personnel policies. And there are a number of items that we're addressing. And in looking at somebody that's so close to retirement, he's the only one that's a non-union employee that's anywhere close to retirement. What we're doing is we're saying that the policy that's in place right now is his package when he retires. And then the future changes that we make will be for the rest of us. And not that, I don't want to make it sound like we're making these drastic changes, because that's not the intention. But there are some things with vacation and sick time and stuff like that that council definitely needs to look at and probably address.
So we can tie future councils, we can.
It'll be the same, it'll be this council.
Okay. I'm good.
Any other questions? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. There are 5 ayes. Next is Vinart parking of cars. We have a lot next to Yaco's, part of what we just purchased for the new Borough Hall complex. And they approached us about parking up to 75 cars on that lot. And the committee recommended that we, by a 2-to-1 vote, allow Vinart to park by leasing the parking lot out for $1,500 per month. And that's with no street storage, no blocking Yaco's entrance or parking, no sales or clients at the premise, responsible for insurance and security, and no car carrier loading or unloading. I don't think I missed anything.
No, so just an update. I know that Councilwoman Gilbert voted no because she felt that we needed some room to negotiate if they needed to negotiate. I actually met with the owner of Yaco's and the owner of Vinart at the site on Friday afternoon, just to make sure that the people from Yaco's were okay with what the plans were, because there's some, there were some questions. Discussed both what our counter proposal was to their lease, and any concerns Yaco's had. Everything worked out. Everything looks good. They're perfectly fine with the $1,500 a month. The owner of Yaco's is reassured. He's actually next door neighbors with the Vinard owner, so that I think that worked itself out between them. I would ask that that if you decide to go ahead with this parking lease, that it would be contingent upon the solicitor finalizing and being comfortable with the terms.
And there was one other thing I missed, now that you mentioned that. The money that comes from that lease is to go into the new building for the new Borough Hall. So if they're there a year, that's $18,000. So that will help us out. All right, anything else? All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Motions first.
Huh? Oh, we didn't make a motion, I'm sorry. Somebody like to make the motion?
So
Councilwoman
moved.
Gilbert, seconded by Councilman Shipsta. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. There's 5 ayes.
Safety grant.
Next, we have the 2018 safety grant, which we got approved for this year. We're going to apply again for flammable liquid storage containers, which was approved by the Safety Committee. And we need a motion to approve Resolution 2017-25. So moved by Councilman Brown, seconded by Councilman Dufresne. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. It's 5-0 in favor. And one other thing, please put in your calendars that September 25th at 7 o'clock, the Southwestern Lehigh Comprehensive Plan is having the hearing. They're doing all 5 municipalities at one time. So each municipality has to have a quorum, so we have to make sure that we will have at least 5 people or 4 people there to make our quorum. I have it on my calendar to be there. Is there anyone that cannot make it? All right, that's just a reminder. Please put in your calendars. Budget and Finance Committee, that's myself again. We have the bill list, Resolution 2017-24. Would somebody like to recommend the bill list? Councilman Shipsta, seconded by Councilwoman Gilbert. Any questions or discussion on the bill list? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. There are 5 ayes. We had the 2017 actuarial valuation report. We have one for the police and one for the non-uniformed. This is Act 205. We have to approve both of them. Would somebody like to make a motion to approve it for the police? Councilman Dufresne, second by Councilman Brown. Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. There are 5 ayes. And for the non-uniformed, Councilman Dufresne, second by Councilman Brown. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. There are 5 ayes. I report progress for the Budget and Finance, Community Relations, Planning and Development. Chairman Dufresne.
Shane, we want to turn this over to the solicitor first, right?
And the developer's here to present. This is 550 Harrison, 526 Seam. So,
Yeah, but if we have the engineer here for the developer, if you want a brief presentation. Sure. What the resolution of the development proposes is a lot line adjustment, so it's moving a lot line from one adjacent lot to another. It's actually a very small adjustment, and Not quite sure exactly what the purpose or the need for it is, but I'll let you explain that.
You're correct. It's Dr. Issa is the one that owns the AI orthodontics. There's a site plan that's being reviewed separately for different layout. But the lot line adjustment is this small triangular piece that's directly across from Turner Street. The old alley that was vacated, the line came through. What we want to do is rotate that up. And this land is going to go with the orthodontics. What they want to do is when they put the new parking area in here, that gives them a little bit more room for a turnaround and additional spaces for the renovations that they're doing for their current orthodontics. They had acquired this back piece, used to be residential. It's all going to be repaired, and the whole entire building is going to be one orthodontic facility, and that was what was setting up for the whole parking layout, and that lot line being adjusted just gives us a little bit more room to get necessary parking in to meet the code.
Yeah, there are several conditions of approval. They're all very minor. At this point, from an engineering standpoint, it's a relatively clean plan, and the requests for waivers are also pretty standard. The main one is to waive a requirement for street widening on Harrison Street, which is, I think, 3 feet for the right-of-way and 1 foot for the cartway. And you've already got existing streets out there, so it's not like you're, what's there is going to stay, basically.
Correct.
So it's very straightforward.
7 feet wide now, the zoning says 60, so,
Right.
and then the carpet would be 1 foot wider. So that was one of the waivers. I believe the other one was.
The other one was just a preliminary final plan to allow you to do it one time.
Preliminary final simultaneous.
Right. So it's a very straightforward, pretty simple matter. There is a land development plan that the Planning Commission is looking at right now to address the building, the parking lot expansion. So you'll probably see that, in the next month or so.
All right, so would somebody like to make a motion to pass Resolution 2017-23? Councilman Dufresne, second by Councilman Brown. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Those abstaining, that would be myself. My daughter works for AI Orthodontist,
Okay.
so I will be abstaining. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
All right, then the only other thing I have, you can see in the notes, the committee met with Ms. Mincer on the Emmaus Halloween Parade. The Halloween committee is in need of volunteers, as they are every year. So hopefully if any resident out there can volunteer their time for the parade, would help with security. And we also discussed the candy issue from last year, but we have no further information at this time on that. So with that, if there are any questions, other than that, I will report progress, and our next meeting is September 14th at 4 p.m.
Thank you. Next on your agenda, you have meeting minutes from 7 different boards or commissions. You have a budget worksheet. You have a report from the Fire and Ambulance Corps, and also a 5-year capital plan from LCA. Does anybody have anything there that they want to bring forward? Any questions or anything from those? Or if you didn't get a chance to read them all, you can always bring it up later. Personal Appeals Part 2. Anybody have anything to bring forward? Hearing none. Borough Manager's Report.
The significant revenue and expense items for July are in your iPads if you have any questions regarding those. As you can see, we've been busy, to say the least. We've got a lot going on. Budget season's right around the corner. I think it's September. I think it's the second Monday in September that they have to have their budget requests into me. So that process is coming right in the middle of union negotiations. So fun times are ahead for everyone. So plan to be very busy this fall. Other than that, talk in executive session.
All right. Borough Manager's Report. What was I going to
Can we
say?
do it again?
Oh, I'm sorry. President's Business. President's Business. Hey. I had something I was going to bring forward. I don't remember, but we'll go into executive session for personnel matters And that's all, personnel?
Yeah, there's no voting items.
So we will go into executive session at 8 o'clock.